Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about Divinity Original Sin 2. This is technically the fifth game in the Divinity series, though Larian Studios, who developed and published this game with the help of Bandai Namco, would go on to, I would say, really make two core games, which are Original Sin 1 and 2 that people know of. And this is an isometric CRPG, which is a computer RPG. It's an old school form of RPGs, kind of in the realm of Baldur's Gate and so on. And I'd gotten really interested in playing this because I'd played through Original Sin before. With the release of Baldur's Gate 3, I said, well, finally time to break this out of the library, give it a try, see what it's all about. And so just starting with the packaging here, one thing I'm kind of sad about is that there hasn't been an announced physical release for Baldur's Gate 3, though that might not stop me from downloading it digitally. But otherwise, this is a pretty basic setup here. It was nice that they released this. This is the definitive edition of the game on physical so that I could add it to the collection. So, game was developed again by Larian Studios. They had essentially finished Original Sin and then began work on this second title. They announced a Kickstarter, I believe in August 2015, and maybe 2 years later they had already completed the whole game and released it on a full release to the public, which I thought was incredible, especially from the lens of what we know about the reception of the game. The game received high accolades from critics, especially those really into this genre and so on, lauding it for really telling a story and for really showing a masterclass in the genre and what can be done with it. And I thought that was really impressive. The game didn't win any super big awards. It sold maybe 1 million copies. I think the biggest award that Larian got out of the release of this game was the opportunity to make Baldur's Gate 3, which is an incredible feat to even know that the game exists to begin with, because of the fact that, you know, you think Baldur's Gate, that's something in the way back. You know what I mean? It's not a game that you would think would come to exist. And not only that, but with the reception of Baldur's Gate 3 as well, I'm really happy for this studio, and will love to dive into some of the details on this game as well. So I'm just speaking about my feelings on the game, and the game is massive. It's really hard just to capture it in kind of this ad hoc form of discussion. But I will do my best, and I played it a little bit back, but still wanted to take the time to discuss it. And so we'll do my best on that, and summarizing some of what I remember about the title. So this game takes place in the world of Rivellon. And at this period in Rivellon's history, a few hundred years into the future from when the original game took place, there are people known as sorcerers. Now, one thing I thought was funny was, well, everyone in this game uses spells, so, you know, there's something there. But Source is specifically delivered by the 7 gods of Rivellon to people. And one of these people may one day rise up to become the divine, who is kind of like the spiritual leader, the one possessed with all the divine source of the gods. And unfortunately what happens is that the most recent divine, Lucian, he spends a lot of his days holding back what is known as the Void, which are these evil monsters led by the God King, is what he's called, who's an evil deity who basically wants to destroy Rivellon. You know, I think the motivations are probably a little more detailed than that, but we can boil it down to essentially that. But so what begins to happen is these, you know, fissures in the void are opening up in the world, And these creatures, the Voidwoken, are coming out, and they are attracted to Source. And so wherever Source magic is used, which is a specific, very powerful type of spell casting, these Voidwoken will come and basically consume and destroy everything. And from that, there's a religious group called the Order, and their belief is that, okay, it's obvious, put one and one together, Source is used, Voidwoken show up. So that means we need to go and capture all the sorcerers of the land and quarantine them, restrict their ability to use these powers. And that's kind of where your journey as a character begins. And so you begin as one of these sorcerers who's been captured and sent to Fort Joy, which is basically an island prison for sorcerers. And your ship is attacked by this giant kraken, and you wake up on the beach afterward, and kind of from there the destination is all your own. There are 6 pre-made characters that you can play as, but there's also a huge flexibility to create your own character, your own class, your own way, and so that's particularly exciting as well. You know, playing it on PlayStation, I was very interested in kind of picking up some of the trophies along the way. And one of the recommendations from that lens is that you use some of the pre-made characters, because they will become very useful for the journey. Another big thing about the pre-made characters is that they have a specific narrative and voice in the experience as well. And their kind of histories before landing at Fort Joy are very relevant for the story forward. So I had never played the custom characters, so I'm not exactly sure how that experience changes. However, the pre-made characters all have a lot to say and a lot of experience in the land that will contextualize your journey along the way. So my team consisted of Ifan, basically playing as a dual-wield wizard. Let me back it up. Ifan was our crossbow guy. And then I had, oh man, it's been a minute. I had Sabine as an assassin, rogue type character. And then we also had the Skelly bro along for the journey. Oh man, I'm forgetting his name. He's one of the most important characters in the whole game. And then the Red Prince, who was just standard sword shield badass. And he is such an awesome character. And all these characters have such personality, and they're really cool. And I think they help bring the world to life because you're experiencing this journey along the way with them. So all said, yeah, it was a very fun kind of start to the game. And you'll journey from Fort Joy to Reaper's Coast, which is this massive continent. And you'll go to the Nameless Isle, and then later you'll go to Arx, which is a giant city. And so there's this grand adventure taking place over maybe 100 to 120 hours. And when I played the game, I was thinking, how can this game go so long? I got through Fort Joy, and I was thinking, oh, okay, well, that wasn't too bad. We must be getting to some sort of conclusion, and we hit the Reaper's Coast. And well, this is huge, but okay, there can't be too much left of this. And the game just kind of continues on. And one thing I love about the structure of the game is that it's very flexible, from the way your characters work and how you build them up to the world you're in and the decisions you make. And to compare it to other RPGs, you know, if you think about Fallout, or Mass Effect, there's always a clear good guy, bad guy choice in every situation in those games. And so, especially early on playing Divinity Original Sin 2, I kept finding myself thinking, okay, I have to make a decision here, obviously. What's the right thing to do? What's the wrong thing to do? There's some objective piece in that decision making, because that's a lot of the RPGs I've played. But Divinity Original 2 is so flexible in allowing you to be the character and the person you want to be. And it's something that I haven't experienced in a lot of games. And I thought was so fantastic from a story lens and a writing lens, that there is this true culmination of the decision making you've done and the way you've played the game that's going to ultimately conclude in a future and a vision of how you treated people and what you did for them and didn't do for them. I mean, the game goes to the lengths of allowing you to kill every single NPC in the game if you want to, every single last person. You could do it. Of course, it would really mess up some of the quest design. And sometimes these characters become important later on, but, you know, they can or cannot be important. And that's just a big part of the flexibility of the game, allowing you to play it as you'd like to. I won't go too much into the super finite details of the game because that is a whole experience and conversation itself. But one thing I can say is that the writing, the voice acting, the pace, everything about the plot is very engaging, very intriguing, very flexible. Again, I'm going to use that word. And I loved it. I think one of the core challenges that I found in the writing and the story is, as I mentioned, all the characters in your team really help contextualize the adventure, and they have their own stories as well that they're going to experience throughout. I did play this with a couple co-op partners, and the hard thing about doing that is it's only the main person who can drive the narrative. So if you have a character tied to one of your co-op friends who's playing the game with you, well then unfortunately that NPC, their story is not going to play out because of the fact they're just with some other person in the party. I did find that frustrating because of course you're going from continent to continent and there's no kind of going back. And so once you've done so, you might miss a very key plot point that allows kind of the continuation of this character's story, with unfortunately no way to go back and remedy that. And so you get these 4 characters you'll spend 100+ hours with on this journey, and if you make that kind of mistake, their story might end a lot earlier than otherwise, or might pick up in a way that you don't remember later on because you didn't get the full context, because you missed something out, like very finite of that nature. So that's the story elements. The gameplay, isometric. You are walking around the world, and I loved that you could break up your party however you want and send people wherever you want and do things however you want. It made it really exciting from the lens of exploring. For example, you go inside of a giant building, co-op partners, hey, let's break up. You go search on this area, I'll go search on this area, we'll meet back up, we'll look at equipment we found, inventory or whatnot. Or, hey, we know there's 10 enemies in this area up ahead. While I initiate the dialogue, you move your character to this place and get up on this high perch so that you have, you know, a damage bonus when you're attacking, or you're defensively positioned in a strategic way. And these things made the gameplay really engaging. But all said, you wander around, you explore these lands, you will come to towns, or you'll talk to people who will give you quests, or maybe they'll just have interesting dialogue to share with you. And the quests are really varied. You know, it's not always just, hey, go to this place and defeat this thing or grab this guy. There's even little quests that just get initiated through your exploration, such as early on Fort Joy, you'll go through the Gargoyle Maze, which you have a purpose to be there somewhat, but the Gargoyle Maze you can just find and initiate yourself, and is really this very technical puzzle for you to adventure through. There are areas like the Gargoyles Maze, however, that can become bugged and broken depending on the way in which you've explored and the pace of your playing. So like the Gargoyle Maze I saved towards the end of Fort Joy, and I think because of the order in which I did some of the things in the area, I couldn't actually complete the Gargoyle Maze. I could still get what I needed to proceed forward, but I would have really enjoyed to have experienced it wholesome. And one thing that happened too was that I had something to identify me as Brachus Rex, I believe. So when I got to the gate at first, the gate said, hey, well, I'll just teleport you to the end. And then I said to myself, well, I actually want to go through the maze, so I'll go back to my team, and then we'll go through the maze together. But it was broken, and then, of course, you know, I couldn't go in and actually get the skulls in the way that one would want to. And so you'll experience that somewhat throughout. But of course, completing missions and defeating enemies will net you experience. And then these experience points, you can level up your character in a number of ways. There are so many skills and so many different spell trees and families of spells that you can explore. And I really love just going around, talking to people, bartering with them, seeing what I could buy from them, tomes, equipment, building my character up in a way that I really wanted to and would reflect on the decisions that I made was super enjoyable. I really liked it. One thing that I found to be, kind of hit or miss, a little bit of a way to get you around tricky situations your character wasn't designed for, was that in the definitive version there is a mirror. You can use this mirror at any time, however many times you want, to completely respec your character, which respecing I think is super important in an RPG. But respec them in however you want, change their appearance and so on. But there do become some things where, as I was mentioning, you'll have to pass a skill check, or you'll want a high awareness so that you can see traps or you can see treasures in a certain area. And all you need to do is go back to the ship, respec your character, and go do that thing, and then you'll be good to go. And then you just change it back or whatnot. And that did kind of, I tried not to do that too much, but it did make the experience a little more simpler than it needed to be. And so that was something that was there to watch out for. Combat is fantastic. Again, I was mentioning the battle tactics available to you are super impressive. Everything seems to have a modifier. Everything seems to change the flow of the fight, and you'll start to get some skills that'll become really effective and will be things that you're always casting or always using. And there's so much depth, and there's so many things I could say about the combat that I'll try to keep it light. But essentially it works on an action point system, so every character will have, I believe, 4 action points, and then some modifiers that will add +1 or -1 and so on. And the way your characters play is super different. So like a rogue, you might want to get them really close to somebody, and once in that fighting area, you try to get behind them. So you'll have some skills that'll teleport you behind them and let you attack, or you'll be able to cloak and dagger and jump around the environment. And then you'll have, say, the crossbow guy. I had Ephon as the crossbow on my team. So he want to be on high ledges and perches. It gives him this huge range across the field. He can cast spells that will allow him to shoot people that move within a range, or he'll have these fantastic shots where you can ricochet shots around people. We'll have someone like Red Prince, who's an absolute tank and whose magic and defense and health is just through the roof, and he's just smashing through people. And or Fane Skelly Bro, magic spells out the wazoo, like can do anything and everything, modify people, buff them, cast these insane spells that just destroy everybody on the field. And I loved how powerful everyone felt, and I loved how unique every playstyle was, because it made it fun for each person along the journey to build up the character that they wanted to have and create. So the fighting is really fun, and there's challenging fights, and every time you're in a fight, it feels like there's a lot of consideration for the strategy you employ and every move you make. And this of course continues to become a thing up until you're fighting the final bosses. It really feels like the combat is so unique and entertaining, and I just can't say more than praise it, to be honest. And there's a lot more depth there, but I'm trying to keep this as kind of high level as I can. And I loved moving throughout the world. Again, I was talking about exploring, but it's fun to navigate. It's easy to jump around and teleport to places you need to be when you need to be them. As you go through the game, you'll pick up these pyramids, which are really cool, because once you have 2 or more, you can place one down, or you can put one in either's party and then just teleport directly to each other. So like sometimes one person would be done exploring town and ready to go back into a dungeon or so on, while another character is still buying equipment or changing their party up. And once done, you just use the pyramid and boom, you just teleport to the person. I really like that, because source is a low quantity and non-replenishable action skill that you have to have source to use, right? And so you'll find source fountains at some key points in the game, And once I had my third pyramid, I would drop a pyramid there so that any time we could set it up where, okay, I'll teleport, I'll get source, and then I'll teleport back to the party, and then you do the same. And I loved how smart it was from the lens of the developers giving you the opportunity to come up with these little ways and strategies of making the world very navigational and accessible to you as a player in however means you wanted to use it. So again, really enjoyed that. Not a whole lot of critiquing there. I would say that there are some areas where you can, at least in my opinion, didn't feel as developed, especially in the northeastern part of the Reaper's Coast. I felt like the world design, the story and writing and everything kind of happening up there seemed kind of light compared to some of the other dense areas. And so I could tell that maybe they just wanted it to be that way. I'm not too sure, but that was just my experience. Sound effects, combat, nothing really stands out. Nothing really bad to say. Did enjoy it. There's some pretty good orchestral and overworld music here that I don't particularly remember too well, but the battle songs that you'll hear quite often are varied and very fun and engaging, so to speak. And graphically, this game is beautiful. It's an incredible looking game. I really like isometric style visuals, and so it's kind of cool to see the overworld. What I really love the most is just how much of the overworld you can see at once. I love being able to zoom out all the way and you can see everything around you, or zooming in right behind my character. One thing I wished, and I see that Larian did this with Baldur's Gate 3, is that zoom in approach, since it is isometric, you kind of just zoom in on the character. So it's really hard to see anything but them when you are walking around the environment. But I think Larian changed the pitch slightly so that you see more so in front of the character in Baldur's Gate 3, and so I did like that. But again, very little nitpicks on the look and the feel and the kind of the way that they've designed this. But graphically, I think the game is beautiful, top to bottom, and the environments you'll go into will be everything from a lush tropical island to a burning cliff coast, which is just on fire and there's char everywhere, lava and things like that. And so I really loved just the diversity of visuals, the fidelity of the visuals is very impressive. I don't have a lot of critiques and issues with this game. I think the big ones were, it was kind of disappointing to miss out on some of my character stories because they were with co-op partners. I think that the respecking and having the mirror kind of made it a little too lenient in terms of making it through some things. I did experience a number of broken quests, unfortunately. But otherwise, top to bottom, for the 100 hours that I played this game consumed my life for a handful of weeks. This was essentially a part-time job, and it's one that I was getting paid in true appreciation. And that was appreciation I was getting from experiencing such a fantastic game. And it really made me excited to hopefully here soon play through Baldur's Gate 3 and enjoy that title as well. So anyways, if you wanted to try a CRPG, I think Divinity Original Sin 2 is really a great place to start. And I really got to just bravo to Larian, because I haven't played many games like this that made me feel the true freedom of developing a character, the true freedom of choosing how I want to approach every tactical situation, every dialogue piece, and with who and in what way. And it's fantastic. It really is such a great game. Okay, enough praises. Check it out. What did you think of Divinity Original Sin 2? Did you like the video? And if you did, please like the video, and hope you subscribe and stick around for more. Would love to have you here for the next one. All right, until then, have a great time and look forward to seeing you again.